Serious, those who have had sex with someone who has had a sex change, how did it compare? My boyfriend is FTM. The sex was good before his transition and even during the first steps of the transition, but now it's very one-sided. I give a lot and receive very little. He was and is still very horny all the time. Besides that, however, everything is the same. He's saving for top surgery and has not considered bottom surgery due to lack of good surgeons and lack of money. It wouldn't bother me if he did decide to get it though. I give a lot and receive very little. What is the reason behind this? I ask myself the same question, but every time I bring up how unhappy I am with the sex, he gets upset. I don't know if he's no longer interested or if it's something deeper he doesn't want to face. My ex is a pre-bottom surgery trans man. As the top commenter said, it's basically like being with a cis dude with a very small dick. He has been on hormones for 8 years, so his growth down there was pretty developed. We were able to have penetrative sex. I'm a woman, by the way. Also, he was pretty skilled in the whole sexual department, and I put that down to him being a woman before, so he knew how to work female genitalia in a way that a cis man couldn't. Apart from the physical side, the emotional side can be pretty intense. A lot of pre-surgery trans people have issues around dysphoria during sex, and this stopped sex dead in its tracks a few times for us. He did not like being penetrated at all, which I didn't realize at first because he was too shy to tell me. That was a bit awkward, and it made me feel like shit afterwards. Overall, even though he had female genitals, it was pretty much just like being with a cis guy physically. 10 out of 10. Would sleep with a trans dude again. My partner and I are both trans. I'm MTF and he's FTM. Most of it is about as different as sex is with any other partner. Everyone has their likes and dislikes, and you kind of fumble your way around to figuring out what works, and then do some more of that. He's obsessed with my breasts and mauls them at every opportunity. When he nuzzles my neck or kisses me, his beard scratches me up. He smells like a man. I smell like a woman. My skin is soft and his is hairy. There's lots of kissing and groping and laughing and talking and dreaming. And then our pants come off. His dick is about the size of a pinky finger from the second knuckle. I can give him head just like any other guy, and he love it. His fluids taste like cum and his parts all have a man smell and they're all covered in hair. I still have a functioning strapless that gets joyfully ignored. It no longer produces emissions and I have multiple orgasms. I particularly enjoy having things put in my inguinal canal. It's called muffing, and it feels really nice. It hits all of the important nerves and has enough space to fit a thumb. If you have testicles and aren't on HRT, your testicles might get in the way. Remember my guy's size? Yup, it fits perfectly. So yeah, it's pretty normal, just a little different, and the pillow talk is way more interesting. It threw me off a bit. The lack of penis didn't bother me, but the presence of a vagina was a bit startling. It was hard to get the sheer presence of it out of my mind for some reason. Super hot and nice guy though. I definitely enjoyed myself. It was just a bit disarming, but not much was actually different. We mostly did anal, but I derped up in his snatch for a bit and it felt pretty good. But I was unaccustomed to the angles of view that vaginal sex leads to. It was novel and a bit strange. But I derped up his snatch for a bit. Just lol. Okay, I know it's 2016, and we're all accepting of stuff like this, but read that man lol. Throwaway for obvious reasons, but I may have had sex with a MTF escort. I was in Australia and had always been interested, so I decided why not. Besides the fact that she was an escort, it was actually a pretty enjoyable experience. Besides having a deeper voice and being a little taller than most females, she did not look any different than any other cis female. As for the sex, besides having a penis, it was surprisingly similar to sex with a cis female. It was actually a great experience because I was allowed to experiment with a few fantasies while still being turned on by her appearances. I don't consider myself gay and would probably never have sex with a male, but having sex with a MTF transsexual was like having the best of both worlds. The looks and touch of a female, but with a little surprise down below. I had a year relationship with a MTF post-op. We went from chatting at a bar, to playing at a BDSM club, to in about a month and a half. Not entirely out of the norm, I'd guess. She said she'd started on hormones pretty late but also had a very delayed puberty, so that sort of evened out. And then went to Thailand at 29. We met about 4 years after she had surgery. All that to say that she had slim hips. A slim bone structure. Pretty much nothing pointed to born male appears female. Her vagina looked like a vagina. There's enough variety in the world that I didn't inspect it vigorously to determine how it came about. She had some small breasts that weren't implants. Basically, I didn't know. Sex was great. We needed lube. But the only uncommon thing about that for me in many cases is that we needed it right at the start instead of first sometime in the middle. It was tight. It was soft. It was warm. It was very wet because we used lube. And it was sex with someone I was already mentally in love with. Also breasts. And my hand around her throat. A good time. She told me she was trans. In a public place. A little while later, she was worried about what sort of reaction I might have to learning that. The whole "you tricked me into f***ing a dude, now I'm going to kill you" thing. But I just didn't care. This is actually something I've thought about a lot since. And I wish she had told me ahead of time. I understand why she didn't, but it's still something she kept me from having informed consent about. Since I didn't care to begin with, I haven't stayed too worried about it. Our relationship went really strongly for a bit over a year, and we ended up breaking up over personality meshing issues. A regular old breakup. But even by the end the sex was still great. The first minute was good. After that it was uncomfortable. I'm a guy. This was at a sex club. I walked in on her male to female sitting on a bed with a younger guy who clearly couldn't perform for whatever reason. So she was horny. I was horny. And we got it on immediately. The room was dark. And she had kind of a strong chin. But I didn't really think about it. She was on top. And held my arms down. I thought, man, she's strong. And not merely strong for a woman of her size. But the vagina felt great. Naturally lubricated. Better than those of some natural women I've been inside. However, the surgical scar from the vulva up was a distraction, as was the unusual hip-to-waist ratio. My experience is probably unusual in that I had sex with her while getting acquainted. I don't know whether the onus was on her to tell me she used to be a dude, or on me to notice it before plunging in. Either way, it wasn't awful. I might repeat if I knew what to expect going in. I'm actually very curious for those that have gotten genital surgery. What does sex feel like? Do females feel anything? Since to me, it seems like they just make a hole. Or do they somehow use some nerve endings that are still there? What about the penises of FTM? I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. I'm just curious. I'm post-op. I unfortunately had some trauma regarding my surgery, nearly dying twice, and my recovery was pretty horrific, so I don't enjoy the feeling of being penetrated, as I link it with bad memories of my time in intensive care. My clit has a clitoral hood and feels like my penis, but tiny tip of your little finger tiny. I can orgasm from it, and when I masturbate I do so externally using it. Penetration dose have a unique sensation to it. The first 1/3 road of my vagina is more sensitive than the top 2/3 are. D's the specific sensation I can't compare really, and there is an intense sensation if you're bottomed out, but I don't enjoy it personally. Apparently my prostate is connected to the top of my vagina according to the surgeon, so that might be what I'm feeling. If I orgasm I get very wet such that I can be entered without lube. Prior to orgasm it's possible but a little difficult. If I'm aroused a bit of lube helps. Orgasms are similar but slightly different in tempo after, whereas male orgasms are a pew 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 pew. Pew feeling. Female orgasms are a woo ubwuw bu wafaha. Clench. Eee. Kinda like a sneeze I guess, but much better. Neither is necessarily more intense than the other IMO, although I don't have a uterus obviously. A more important determinant in O intensity is mindset and how long it's been since your last O, which tends to be longer as a female, as my libido is lower with no male hormones in me, but isn't a given. I honestly think that is the best orgasm description I've ever seen. It's funny to read how you describe female orgasm to sneezing, because that's how I always describe it to my male friends. Especially those moments leading up to trying to sneeze and you're on the edge and like, come the f*** and just do it already, it's so close damn it, which is very similar to how my mindset is near orgasm lol. My partner and I are both trans. And both female to male. Neither of us have bottom surgery. but that is more due to the lack of good surgeries in my area than a lack of desire for it. Hormones still do a lot to the clitoris. I think the thing that surprised us both was how quickly our clits grew. My partner's does not stay tucked up in the skin anymore, and it freely hangs down a bit. I can actually give them head, like giving a blowjob to a very tiny penis. Other than that, body smells are now a thing. Even after having a shower just that day, the body smells a lot different now than it did before. And everything is very hairy. We're both about 8 months into hormones right now, so I'm sure we still have a long way to go as far as changes go. In comparison to a cis dude, the dick is just much smaller. Also, we both went from being horny and wanting something inside of us to wanting to grind on things instead. Humping makes so much more sense now, and it's become so much more fun to just grind. Sometimes we prefer that to trying to even bother with penetration.